High in the rugged mountains of Appalachia lies a tale shrouded in mystery, a story of a people known as the Lost Tribe of Appalachia. For centuries, the Melungeons have baffled historians and scientists alike. Who were they? How did they come to be here? And most hauntingly, where did they go? This isn't merely a story of a forgotten tribe. It's a journey through the complexities of identity, survival, and the unanswered questions of history. The Melungeons stood apart from the societal norms of their time, neither white, Native American, nor black, yet undeniably present, enigmatic, and distinct. Through fragments of legend, historical whispers, and scientific speculation, we uncover the fascinating clues and wild theories surrounding this mysterious group. Were they descendants of Portuguese sailors, survivors of ancient civilizations, or something even more profound? Join me as we unravel the untold story of the Melungeons, Appalachia's lost tribe, a story that bridges the gap between myth and history, a haunting reminder of the voices that time tried to silence. Hancock County, Tennessee, a land of breathtaking beauty and untamed wilderness. Even today, it remains one of the most remote regions in Appalachia, untouched by the trappings of modernity. No railroads cut through its rugged terrain, no sprawling interstates connect it to the outside world. Instead, a handful of narrow, twisting two-lane highways wind their way through this isolated and mysterious landscape. For centuries, only the hardiest of souls dared to carve out a life in these unforgiving mountains. Among them were the Melungeons, a group that stands as perhaps the most enigmatic in American history. Their story is woven into the ridges and hollers of places like Newman's Ridge, Snake Holler, Mulberry Gap, and Blackwater Creek, with smaller settlements extending into neighboring Virginia. Here, on these high, secluded ridges, the Melungeons thrived in near isolation. They were neither black nor white, nor entirely Native American, yet their existence was undeniable. Who they were and how they came to call these rugged mountains home remains one of the most tantalizing mysteries of the Appalachian story. Their unique heritage, set apart from the surrounding populations, only deepens the intrigue of their story. The Melungeons possessed a strikingly unique appearance that set them apart from the other populations of Appalachia. They were described as having dark, wavy hair paired with distinctly European features, dark or gray eyes, thin noses, and a peculiar anatomical trait, a distinctive bump at the back of their heads. Even today, their origins remain shrouded in mystery. How did this seemingly exotic group of people come to inhabit the rugged mountains of Appalachia, and what paths brought them here? Historically, the Melungeons lived in near total isolation, choosing to remain apart from both Native Americans and white settlers. This separation extended to their lack of participation in the violent conflicts and wars waged between these two groups. Their self-imposed solitude, while shielding their community, also rendered them nearly invisible to history. It wasn't until the late 1800s that their existence began to capture wider attention. But traces of the Melungeons in Appalachia had been noted much earlier. As far back as the late 1600s, French explorers recorded encounters with men in the mountain pockets of what is now Tennessee, men who were neither Native American nor white. These early accounts hint at a story that stretches far beyond what we know today, a story as elusive as the mist that cloaks the Appalachian ridges they once called home. During the turbulent years of the 1780s, as the short-lived state of Franklin emerged and faded, John Sevier, its first and only governor, documented a remarkable discovery. He wrote of a colony of dark-skinned people with reddish-brown complexions who lived deep in the mountains of East Tennessee. These individuals, believed to be of Moorish descent, called themselves Melungeons and claimed Portuguese ancestry. Their presence was a quiet but undeniable reality in the region, a mystery that defied easy explanation. By 1795, the first official government acknowledgement of the Melungeons appeared in the Census, which recorded 300 free, non-white persons residing in the mountainous areas of East Tennessee. This number was especially significant, given that the region had no history of slavery and fewer than 50 black residents at the time. These 300 individuals, existing outside the conventional racial classifications of the era, represented a distinct and enigmatic population. The records from this period offer a rare glimpse into the Melungeons' early existence. raising as many questions as they answer. Who were these people, and how had they maintained their identity in the remote Appalachians? The historical accounts of the 18th century mark the beginning of their recognition, but far from the end of the mystery surrounding their origins. By the late 1800s, the population of the Melungeons had grown to over 700 individuals. Their enigmatic presence, confined to the remote ridges of Appalachia, began to capture the imagination of the nation. Newspapers across America featured stories of this mysterious group, drawing historians, anthropologists, and scientists to East Tennessee and Virginia, all eager to uncover their secrets. Theories about the Melungeons' origins ranged from plausible to fantastical, each reflecting the fascination and confusion surrounding this unique people. One prevailing theory suggested they were descendants of Portuguese sailors, survivors of shipwrecks who found refuge in the Appalachian mountains. Others speculated that they were the remnants of the Lost Colony of Roanoke, abandoned settlers who assimilated with native populations along the Outer Banks. Some researchers proposed a more complex lineage, describing the Melungeons as a triracial mix of Indian, African, and Mediterranean ancestry. Meanwhile, bold historical narratives emerged, linking their origins to Hernando de Soto's 1540 expedition through the region, or to Captain Juan Pardo's 1567 journey with 125 Spanish men who might have intermarried with local Native Americans. But perhaps the most astonishing theory traced the Melungeons' roots to the ancient city of Carthage. According to this view, after the Romans conquered Carthage in 146 BC, Phoenician refugees fled across the Mediterranean to Morocco, then to Portugal, before eventually crossing the Atlantic to America. This idea, though dramatic, highlights the enduring intrigue surrounding the Melungeons, a people whose true story remains tantalizingly out of reach, caught between the boundaries of history and legend. Each theory about the Melungeons' origins carries its own allure, yet the central question remains: who were these people, and how did they come to reside in the remote mountains of Appalachia? Among the most captivating of these hypotheses is one that ties the Melungeons to the ancient city of Carthage, circa 200 BC, during the height of the Phoenician Empire. Carthage, situated on the Mediterranean coast in present-day Tunisia, was one of the most powerful cities of its time. Known for its wealth, advanced maritime technology, and formidable military, it was a hub of trade and culture, rivaling even Rome. The city's dominance extended across the Mediterranean, supported by a mighty navy and an army that defended its borders with remarkable tenacity. Could the Melungeons be descendants of the Carthaginians, a people who stood against the might of Rome during the Punic Wars? If so, their journey to Appalachia would have spanned centuries and continents, passing through the fall of Carthage, migration to North Africa and Europe, and ultimately, a perilous voyage across the Atlantic. This theory, though extraordinary, reflects the enduring fascination with the Melungeons, a people whose origins seem as complex and far-reaching as the empires of old. As the Roman Empire expanded, its ambition to dominate Carthage ignited the Punic Wars, a series of brutal conflicts that spanned over 40 years and claimed countless lives. Despite their fierce resistance, the Carthaginians ultimately fell to Roman rule. In the aftermath, many survivors fled their homeland, crossing into Morocco and eventually journeying across the Straits of Gibraltar to the coastal regions of Portugal. There, they intermarried with local populations and became known as the Moors, a group immortalized centuries later in Shakespeare's iconic play, The Moor of Venice. These were people of resilience and bravery, who had stood against Rome's might with unwavering courage. According to this theory, some descendants of the Moors made the treacherous journey across the Atlantic, only to find themselves marooned off the coast of South Carolina near the North Carolina line. Once in the Americas, their arrival was met with rejection by white settlers, who refused to recognize them as equals or allow their children access to schools. The unusual color of their skin made them outsiders in this new land, forcing them to seek refuge deeper into the wilderness. In their isolation, this group may have migrated westward, eventually finding sanctuary in the Appalachian Mountains. Could this lineage of defiant survivors be the ancestors of the Melungeons? While this theory remains speculative, It underscores the remarkable endurance and adaptability of a people who were repeatedly displaced but never entirely erased from history. Faced with rejection and prejudice in the coastal settlements, these newcomers to America pressed further inland, ultimately crossing to the western side of the Appalachian Mountains. It was there, in the remote ridges of eastern Tennessee, that they found refuge, carving out a life far removed from the constraints and hostilities of the outside world. However, another intriguing theory suggests that the Melungeons may not have arrived as foreigners at all, but rather as survivors of one of America's earliest and most mysterious colonial ventures, the Lost Colony of Roanoke. In 1585, Sir Walter Raleigh sponsored an ambitious attempt to establish the first permanent English settlement in North America on Roanoke Island, located off the coast of present-day North Carolina. Though daring in its vision, the Roanoke colony quickly encountered the harsh realities of the New World. Shortages of food, supplies, and communication with England left the settlers vulnerable, and when a supply ship finally returned years later, the colony had vanished without a trace. Could the Melungeons be the descendants of those lost colonists, possibly assimilated into native communities and carrying forward a unique blend of European and indigenous heritage? This theory, while speculative, adds another layer of intrigue to the already complex history of the Melungeons, suggesting that their roots may stretch deep into the earliest chapters of America's colonial past. The attempt to establish a permanent English settlement on Roanoke Island in 1585 was as bold as it was perilous. A group of 120 settlers ventured to the outer banks of North Carolina, driven by dreams of new beginnings. Yet the harsh realities of the New World soon made themselves known: unfamiliar terrain, dwindling resources, and the looming threat of conflict. In desperation, the settlers' ship returned to England to gather food and supplies, vowing to return swiftly, but swift it was not. 5 long years passed before the ship returned to Roanoke, only to find the settlement eerily abandoned. The fort, once teeming with life, stood empty. The settlers, men, women, and children, had vanished without a trace. The only clue left behind was a single word carved into a tree: Croatia. This cryptic message has fueled centuries of speculation. Did the settlers assimilate with the Croatian Indians, a native group that some researchers suggest was already of mixed Spanish and Portuguese descent? If so, could the Melungeons be their descendants, carrying forward this unique genetic and cultural blend? Still, others propose that the Melungeons' origins lie not with the lost colony, but with Hernando de Soto's expedition into the southeastern United States in 1540. Leading an army of 600 men and accompanied by 100 women servants, De Soto sought gold and riches, but left a trail of battles and alliances with native tribes in his wake. Could the remnants of his expedition have intermarried with indigenous communities, ultimately giving rise to the Melungeons? Both theories weave threads of history and mystery, offering tantalizing glimpses into the possible origins of Appalachia's lost tribe. Yet the truth remains as elusive as the settlers of Roanoke themselves. In 1540, the Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto led an ambitious expedition deep into the uncharted lands of what is now East Tennessee. With dreams of discovering gold, copper, silver, and freshwater pearls, his army navigated the Nolchucky, French Broad, and Little Tennessee rivers. However, the journey proved far more treacherous than anticipated. De Soto's relentless push into the rugged terrain led to repeated clashes with native tribes, resulting in devastating losses. Nearly half of his 600 men perished in the harsh conditions and battles. De Soto himself succumbed to fever in these foreign lands, leaving his surviving men leaderless and stranded. It is believed that some of these soldiers, facing the impossibility of returning to Spain, chose instead to remain in Appalachia. They may have sought refuge among the native tribes, intermarrying and blending their European lineage with the indigenous populations. This intermingling, according to some researchers, could explain the unique ancestry of the Melungeons, linking them to the remnants of De Soto's ill-fated expedition. Adding another layer to this historical puzzle, 2 decades later in the 1560s, Spanish explorer Juan Pardo launched several expeditions with a smaller force of 120 men. Pardo's ventures into modern-day South and North Carolina, aimed to establish trade relationships with native tribes and build a Spanish foothold in the region. These efforts, though ultimately unsuccessful, further support the theory that interactions between Spanish explorers and native communities could have played a pivotal role in shaping the Melungeon lineage. The story of Hernando de Soto and Juan Pardo serves as a fascinating window into the complex and interconnected history of Appalachia's lost tribe. In the 1560s, Spanish explorer Juan Pardo embarked on a series of ambitious expeditions through the southeastern United States, aiming to establish trade relations with native tribes and lay the groundwork for Spanish colonization. Along his route, Pardo constructed several forts, including one on the French Broad River in what is now East Tennessee. These forts were intended as both trading outposts and defensive strongholds, symbolizing Spain's efforts to secure a foothold in the region. However, this endeavor met with tragedy in 1568 when many of Pardo's men were killed in a violent confrontation with native tribes. The survivors, unable to return to Spanish-controlled territories, sought refuge in the rugged mountains of Appalachia. Isolated and vulnerable, it is believed that these men assimilated into the local native populations, blending their European heritage with indigenous communities. This theory positions Pardo's stranded soldiers as potential ancestors of the Melungeons, their unique Mediterranean features echoing the Spanish origins of these early explorers. While the historical record of Pardo's expeditions is sparse, the idea that remnants of his force may have contributed to the Melungeons' lineage adds another layer of intrigue to their mysterious origins. It highlights the complex web of survival, adaptation, and cultural exchange that defines the untold story of Appalachia's lost tribe. By the dawn of the 20th century, approximately 700 Melungeons resided on Newman's Ridge, a rugged enclave where their unique appearance set them apart from any other group in America. With their distinctly Mediterranean features, dark, wavy hair, olive-toned skin, and European facial characteristics, they fiercely asserted their ancestry as descendants of Portuguese explorers. Some elders, even in the 1800s, claimed their people had lived in these mountains long before the arrival of white settlers. However, their identity came with societal challenges. Officially, the state of Tennessee classified the Melungeons as free persons of color, a designation that imposed significant restrictions on their land ownership and legal rights. This status likely explains their concentration on Newman's Ridge, a region with poor and fertile soil that offered little economic opportunity. Despite their isolation, the Melungeons' mysterious origins and distinct culture attracted national attention. Sensational stories about Appalachia's lost tribe filled newspapers, capturing the imagination of readers and fueling speculation about their ancestry. Yet, by the 1930s, a strange transformation began to unfold. The Melungeons, who had maintained their identity for centuries, started to disappear from the historical landscape. Was this the result of assimilation into surrounding communities, a loss of cultural cohesion, or a deliberate choice to escape societal prejudice? Whatever the cause, their presence on Newman's Ridge began to fade, marking the start of their vanishing from public consciousness, a mystery as compelling as their origins. As the decades passed, the Melungeons began to fade from their ancestral stronghold on Newman's Ridge. With the advent of public education and increasing opportunities beyond their remote mountain homes, younger generations descended the ridge, seeking new lives in distant towns and cities. Intermarriage with other racial and ethnic groups further blurred the lines of their once distinct identity. By the 1960s, the Melungeons, with their signature Mediterranean features, had seemingly disappeared, replaced by a diverse population that reflected a broader melting pot of races. The disappearance of Appalachia's lost tribe did not go unnoticed. Newspapers across the nation chronicled the vanishing of this enigmatic group, turning their story into an obscure historical footnote by the latter half of the 20th century. However, the turn of the millennium brought a renewed interest in the Melungeons' heritage. The rise of websites like Ancestry.com and the popularity of DNA databases sparked a cultural revival. What was once a source of societal exclusion had become a badge of honor. Tens of thousands of people proudly claimed Melungeon ancestry. By 2010, Genetic testing companies conducted the first large-scale DNA analyses of individuals identifying as Melungeon descendants. These efforts sought to unravel the genetic puzzle of this mysterious community, sparking new debates and raising more questions about the origins and legacy of Appalachia's lost tribe. The Melungeons, long thought to have disappeared, were now re-emerging, not as a singular community, but as a rediscovered part of American history, and since 2011, multiple DNA studies have attempted to unravel the genetic tapestry of the Melungeons, revealing a diverse and complex heritage. The findings indicate that the Melungeons were a true melting pot. Some had African ancestry, others traced their roots to Native American tribes, while many exhibited European lineage, including Mediterranean origins. Rather than resolving the mystery, these results have only deepened the intrigue, raising as many questions as they answer. The diversity within the Melungeon genetic profile challenges the simplicity of traditional ancestry narratives. It also casts doubt on the reliability of commercial DNA testing, as these methods rely heavily on contemporary population samples. Given the Melungeons' decline and near disappearance by the mid-20th century, modern DNA databases may lack sufficient historical data to accurately trace their ancestry. This limitation underscores the difficulty in definitively answering the question of who the Melungeons were, leaving their story open to interpretation and further exploration. The genetic studies affirm one key truth: the Melungeons were a uniquely blended people whose origins defy conventional categories. Their story, both genetic and cultural, is a testament to the interconnectedness of human history and the resilience of communities that thrive despite exclusion and adversity.